Welcome to the lesson on distributive property. We've talked a little bit about it in the past on a few of our lessons, and now we're just going to go a little bit more in depth with it. We're actually going to take it using variables and figure out how to expand our mathematical problems. Right now we have a simple explanation as to what the distributive property is. It means to distribute. Mathematically, it means we're going to multiply out parts of an expression. In the real world, if I'm going to distribute something, I'm going to hand it out. In class, your teacher may distribute the worksheets. In the past, the newspaper delivery boy would distribute the newspapers. So, when I'm talking about the distributive property, I need to multiply out the parts. This is what a lot of you will see with your teachers in class. They'll say, okay, we're going to take this 2, multiply it by the x, take the 2, multiply it by the 9, and then solve that and get our answer. So the 2 is what was being multiplied out. However, behind the scenes, let's take a look and see what was really going on in this example. Once we understand what's happening here, it's going to be a lot easier to understand the rest of the mathematics. So in this example, this says 2 times x plus 9. Let me give you a different example first, and then we'll come back to this one. What if I asked you what is 2 times 3? Well, hopefully you would be able to remember that that means you want 3 and twice, and you're going to add them together. It's the same thing as 3 plus 3. So in this case, if I want x plus 9 times 2, really what I'm saying is I want x plus 9, and then I want to add to that x plus 9. What we realized here is that this is now just like combining like terms from the other lesson, that I have an x and an x plus x is 2x, and 9 plus 9 is 18. Rather than writing it out every single time, it's a lot easier for us just to multiply out the parts. So let's look at another example and see if this always works. What if it was 4 times 2x minus 9? Well, what that means is all that means is I want the 2x minus 9 to occur 4 times. 2x minus 9 plus 2x minus 9 plus 2x minus 9, and one more, plus 2x minus 9. There's nothing to distribute in each one of these, so technically I don't need the parentheses there. I'll leave them, they're not hurting anything. And then I look and I see that I have a 2x plus 2x plus 2x plus 2x. 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 2 more is 6, plus 2 more, that's 8x. And then a negative 9 plus a negative 9 plus a negative 9 plus a negative 9 would be negative 36. Which, if I had just done the distributive property without writing it all out, I could get 4 times 2x. 4 times 2 is 8 with the x. And then 4 times a negative 9. And if you needed to do additive inverse here to make sure it's a negative 9, that's okay. 4 times negative 9 is negative 36. So there we go. There's a quick little explanation for that. This comes in handy, especially when we start dealing with problems like this. Let's say it was 25 times 2x minus 5. Are you really going to want to write out 2x minus 5 25 times? Maybe if you have some extra time on your hands, but probably not. So then you're going to take and just do the distributive property. I'm going to multiply out the parts. 25 times 2x would be 50x. 25 times a negative 5, I know that's going to be negative. 5 quarters is $1.25, so 125. 5x minus 125. So let's get into some practice. Here we go. We have 4 problems here with distributive property. Notice that in this case it's a negative 6. These 2 are positive. And this one lands behind. But that's still what I'm multiplying out. Sometimes it's a good habit to show the arrow, because you never know, or well, you might, but when you get to some problems, they might be 3 or 4 terms deep. It might be a 3x plus a 6 plus a 2y. Now, most of what we're dealing with probably won't have 2 separate variables in it, but if I had this, I would have to multiply it out to each part. So in this case, we only have the 2 inside the parentheses. And if I multiplied it out, a negative 6 times an a is a negative 6a. And a negative 6 times an 8 is a negative 48. Note that that is the same as negative 6a plus negative 48 if you wanted to have that as an answer. All right, let's try this problem. I need to take the 4 and multiply it by the 1 and to the 9x. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times a positive 9 is a positive 36x. I could leave it like this. Mathematically, that's fine. However, most mathematicians like to have the variable first. So since it's a positive 36, I'll write that first. And then it's a positive 4. For me in my class, either one of these examples would be acceptable. They both mean the same to me. All right, the next two problems, don't let any of these stump you. I'm taking the 6 and I'm multiplying it out. Notice that this is a negative 5n. So what is 6 times negative 5? Well, that would be negative 30, and it would be an n because it would be the n each time. And then I have to take the 6 times a 7. That's a positive 7, so it's positive 42. I'm done. That's my answer. Nothing more to solve there. Last but not least, we have the variable who's on the outside, but I still do it the same way. Doesn't matter which one I talk to first, which one I distribute it to first. I could start with the 10, I could start with the 9m. I'll start with the 9m just because mathematically, again, I want that variable to come first. 2 times 9 is 18 with an m. 2 times 10 is 20, and it's positive, so positive 20. All you have to do is multiply your parts out. So, on this screen, I want you to hit pause, solve some, and then come back. All right, thank you for coming back. Let's see what kind of answers you were able to get. Negative times a negative is a positive 32 when I take it out to here. And when I multiply this one out here, I'm going to get a positive 24n. Again, this answer is just fine, or you may have flipped it around like this. All right, let's look at this next problem. This one is negative 8b minus 32. 8 times negative b would be negative 8b. Times negative 4 is negative 32. You sure could have this answer as well if you did the additive inverse. That would be just fine. This 5 is on the back side, just like the negative 8 was, but everything is still the same. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times negative 7 is negative 35n. And again, you can flip this around, but it's important to recognize that that's a negative 35. So negative 35n and a positive 5. These two are the same. Either one would work. Last but not least, hopefully you got negative 6x plus a negative 24. Again, it might be negative 6x minus 24. Same answer. All right. We're going to step up our game a little bit here. This is still distributing, but it's combining like terms at the same time. So don't let this throw you for a loop. Don't get confused. Starting with order of operations, we need to start with our parentheses, which are right here. Starting with those parentheses, there's nothing in there that I can combine. However, I do need to multiply out this 6 first. So negative 6 times a is negative 6a. Negative 6 times 8 is negative 48. However, you might be asking yourself a question. Why am I not going to this number? Notice that the 6 is not multiplying that. The 6 is only multiplying what's inside of this group. The rest of this just drops down to be part of the expression. It's not being multiplied out by anything. From here, I need to go back and use some of those skills that we talked about earlier about combining like terms. So now what I have is a like term of a negative 6a, and if I do additive inverse, I have a negative 2a. 6 negatives and 2 negatives make 8 negatives, so it's negative 8a. And then here I have a negative 48. Again, if I did additive inverse, it's a negative 48. And a positive 18. The negatives are going to win by 30. So there's your final answer. Again, you could have additive inverse and change that up. All right, so let's look at this next problem. The next problem that we have, this is in the middle. The distributive property is in the middle. So I need to rewrite the negative 12, but now the 4 is being multiplied out. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 9x is 36x. And then I just need to rewrite what's at the end here, minus 2x. I'm going to look for my like terms. Oops, I forgot the x here. Good thing I caught that. Now I need to look for my like terms. Looking for my like terms in this example, I see my constants right here. 12 negatives and 4 negatives will leave me with 8 negatives. 36x plus a negative 2x. 36x plus a negative 2x is 34x. I could leave my answer like this, or I can change it so I have the 34x up front and the negative 8 in back. I could do plus a negative if I wanted to, but either way, that would be it. I'm going to show you 2 more, and then I'll give you 2 problems to try on your own. So notice this has the 3 terms in it. So I could take and multiply all this out first. Or if I go back and look at order of operations, I could say, hey, wait, something needs to be solved inside of here first. I notice that there are like terms here. The positive 7 and the negative 9 inside the parenthesis. So if I'm going to rewrite this, I'll have negative 5n inside, but a positive 7 and a negative 9 leave me with negative 2 plus negative 12. All right. Now I solved what was inside the parenthesis. Now I can distribute. 6 times negative 5n is negative 30n. 6 times a negative 2, if I did additive inverse for some of you to see, is negative 12. And then I still have the negative 12 over here. When I look at combining like terms, if I did my additive inverse, I have 12 negatives plus 12 negatives, which is 24 negatives, and negative 30n up front. So that could be my final answer right there, negative 30n minus 24, or negative 30n plus a negative 24. Last but not least, let's go over this problem here. Notice this has 2 distributing properties in there, and that's okay to have 2. This one starts at the back, so we'll take 2 times 9m. 2 times 9 is 18, so I have 18m. 2 times a positive 10 is a positive 20. Now that solves this. Here I'm going to add to that, because this is adding, 7 times 2m, so 14m, and 7 times a negative 3, which is negative 21. Now what I'm going to do is look for my like terms. 18m, positive 14m, that's going to give me 32m. And then my other like terms, positive 20, negative 21. Again, if I did additive inverse, I could see that was negative 21. So it's minus 1. Last thing I'm going to do is give you the opportunity to try 4 on yourself, by yourself. So go ahead and hit pause and then come back. All right, let's see how successful you were. I'm going to go through the steps. I'm going to do them very quickly and not explain them near as much. I just want you to have the opportunity to see if your work somewhat matches. I do have to change this to a fine point, so excuse me. All right, so then I'm going to look at those. All right, so that should be your answer for the first one. The next one, again, I'm going to give you the answer to these relatively quickly without showing much explanation as to why. And hopefully I can beat my battery going dead, because it says my battery is going dead right now. So we have negative 3 plus negative 6, negative 9, negative, negative. This will turn into additive inverse of a positive. So that's going to give me 4x. Last 2 problems for you. We're going to take this. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8n. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 4 times 8 is negative 32. You'll notice that this time I distributed it all out instead of adding it first. I'll get the same answer that you got. So just in case you're someone like that who happens to make that mistake, it's not the end of the world. So now I have all of these subtracting in here. I'm going to change them to additive inverse. I have negative 8n. This turns into a negative 40 plus negative 18. Negative 40 and a negative 18 are going to make a negative 58. Last problem. Now I'm going to multiply this out. Notice this is 1 with 2. This is a negative 10 plus negative 20m. Multiply the 4 out, negative 12m minus 24. Now I'm going to combine my like terms. I have a negative 10 and a negative 24 to give me negative 34, negative 20, and a negative 12 to give me negative 32m. Again, I can switch this around so the m comes first if my machine catches up here. But either one of these answers would be acceptable. Hopefully this helped you out a little bit, and I encourage you to go ahead and try them at home and have a great day.